brown pubs in Amsterdam, beer towns versus wine towns, and a pastry-infused brew. This week, it's all about beer.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. This is where we explore the food and drink of the world at destinationeatdrink.com and on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. This time, we're talking about and sampling beer. But first, if you like Destination Eat Drink, could you toss us a couple dollars? It really helps the show keep going, and a few bucks would go a long way. Just go to destinationeatdrink.com and click on the Contribute button, and thank you very, very much. This week, since summer is unofficially here, I thought we'd revisit some of my favorite conversations about beer from around the world. We hoist a few in Amsterdam, enjoy a pint or two in Ireland, visit some breweries in Boston, and explore craft beer in Lisbon. Okay, I'm thirsty, so let's drink.
Destination Eat Drink.
Thijs van Rooyen is the founder of Amsterdam Food Tours. He tells me about Amsterdam's brown pubs and the different styles of beer to enjoy in the Dutch city.
Brown pub is the typical Dutch pub. Like the Irish have their specific pub, or the British have their pub, so we have the Dutch, and we call the brown pub. And Dutch is named the Bruine Kroeg. Yeah, you're right. So these places are, we talked earlier about the feeling of gezelligheid, and the brown pub, that's the cradle of gezelligheid, because these places are small, snug, very old. So, for example, we visited one, and that is in a building from 1625. So there's a lot of wood and timber, and it has been smoking there for hundreds of years, so you have the nicotine stains, make it all brown. And that's where we come together and we have our drinks. We have no music, we're there to socialize, to chat, to gossip, etc. Have a piece of apple pie or some bitterballen and a beer or gin. It's just a splendid way, to socialize. It's a bit like the living room for the Dutch in the neighborhood where you meet each other.
400-year-old pub. The atmosphere there must just be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It has this very quiet, nice, serene atmosphere. And it's beautiful. It's on the crossing of two canals. So yeah, you can actually sit there all day. Just book your holiday there.
Perfect. So I go into the brown pub. Well, what am I drinking? I'm going to have a beer. What kind of beer would I have?
Well, I think you all know Heineken, of course.
Sure.
And Amsterdam-based, and next to that you might have heard of Amstel, and that's where our city has its name from, not from the beer, but the river, the Amstel, or the Amstel that runs through the city. And we have a huge craft beer scene in Amsterdam. I think we have over 35 or 40 craft breweries. So there is one pub in Amsterdam, one of our favorite places actually, and they have Dutch beers only, and I think it counts up to 175, 180 beers.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, go for craft beer, maybe a Heineken, just, to get in the mood, and then a craft beer. Be careful, because they're a bit higher in alcohol, obviously. And maybe try just gin, Jenever.
Before we talk about Jenever, I wanted to ask you about the beers themselves, because I'm curious, what style of beer would the Dutch prefer? Would it be a lager, a pilsner, a stout? What kind would we be drinking typically in a brown bar?
So I think we are a bit like Belgium. So we love our lagers. We love our triples. The blonde, fresh beers, and obviously IPA is big. So you see a lot of IPA combinations. Stout, we don't have that much. What we like to drink, it looks a bit like stout. It's a bit lighter, I would say, is called bock beer. And that's a seasonal beer, and that's served in October, November, start of the winter times. Then every brewery will have its own bock beer. You'll have competitions where you can try all of them. And they'll be replaced in April, May by some wheat beer with a T at the end, not a D, obviously. So that's more the the refreshing wheat-based beers that are very popular to drink.
Rick Kempfer is an award-winning author, publisher, and podcaster. He and I met up in Galway, Ireland, and we talk about some of our favorite places we visited and some excellent Irish brews. And the first place we went to...
It was really the only place we went to that was only Irish people in there.
Right. I think you're right. And the only place we went to where there weren't like masses of hen parties and stag parties flowing through and stuff like that. I mean, nothing against, if that's what you want to do, if that's why you want to come to Ireland, your girlfriends or your guy friends are doing that, fine, do that and, puke in the street and whatever you want to do, that's your thing. We're probably a little bit too old for, for doing that. But the first place we went to was a place called, that I was really interested and exciting to go to, was called John Keogh's Gastropub. And I'm not sure how long this place has been open. We walked inside and you just loved the interior of this place.
Oh my God. And it's one of those places that it just reeks of Ireland, you know what I mean? And then, when I say reeks, I mean the smell in there was amazing.
Yeah, it did.
I just wanted to eat immediately.
Yeah. Not to be sarcastic. We're not being sarcastic like stale beer. It smelled delicious in there.
The food. Yeah, you could just tell the food was amazing. And I had a chowder that was one of the best chowders ever. We're sitting outside eating.
That was the thing. So we get there and it was packed inside. Every table was taken and they were like, well, we can't. And we said, okay, well, can we sit outside? There was about, 5-6 tables outside. So we sat outside. It was a little chilly. But that was where we sat. And you made
the soup better though, didn't it?
It sure did.
We both ordered
warmed
soup.
Us up.
Yeah.
And you had the seafood chowder, which you really liked.
Fantastic.
And I had the butternut squash soup, which was also equally good. It was really nice. So I would say I would definitely go back to John Keogh's and try more of their menu.
Me too.
I think it was definitely worth it. And they also had some nice brown bread and butter, which you didn't eat. I ate it. I thought it was really good. Went well with the soup. And I had another Galway hooker there. I don't remember did you get a Guinness? I don't remember.
Yes, I did. I remember you tried to drink
Oh, that's right. I was trying to drink your Guinness. Yeah. And you
Brent is so accustomed to drinking Guinness that he was reaching for my glass. I had to slap his hand.
You put a fast end to that.
That's my beer, my friend. My stout.
It was
not a beer.
Stout. And so after that, we went kind of a couple doors down and across the street to a place called Beer House. And so I wanted to take you here because it's Bierhaus.
Right.
German spelling, Beer House.
Best schnitzel. No, I'm kidding.
Now Galway's going to be on your ass. But Beer House, traditional German spelling. By this time, we were freezing our asses off. So we went inside and we sat at the bar. And I was really pleased with with the variety of beers, and just the scope of the beer menu that they had.
Yeah, they had over 20 different beers on draft.
And they were craft beers.
Yes.
And I had the porter, which I enjoyed. Wasn't quite as rich as a stout. Sometimes with the porters, you get a little bit of a chocolatey note on them. At least I've had some in Ireland like that. This one did not, but it was still good. I still enjoyed it. And how was your beer? Did you?
I had the German beer.
You got the German beer. That's right. You were very excited because they had legit German beers on.
Right. And look, just say this. I say this a lot, but the Germans perfected beer in 1615, and there's really no need to get any other kind of beer. If you can get German beer, that's what you get because it's perfect. And that's my opinion.
In every way. And you made this point. You've made this point now multiple times on the podcast.
Yes.
And hey man, die on that hill.
That's it. That's my hill.
Fly your flag and proudly wave it, because if that's where you're going to be. Me, I'm more of an agnostic. I'm going to try a lot of different things.
The other word for that is wrong. But I can just translate for people.
Fair enough, my friend. They also had a little grill in the front of the beer house where they were serving tacos, just frying them up right on the griddle. We didn't have any food there, but people seemed to be enjoying it.
Yeah.
So not sure about that, but the beer house seemed like a cool place. Then. So this doesn't make us sound. It makes us sound like we're.
We only had one beer at each location.
Yeah, so let's not get. Yeah. Let's not make it sound worse than it was. But then we went up the hill back towards our Airbnb because we knew we were going to meet the ladies, and we went to a place called the what was it called? The Cook's Thatch Bar.
Yes.
And it's called Thatch Bar because the roof of the bar is actually a thatched hay roof.
Right.
Pretty, charming and the whole deal. This was the place that before we started this that I was the most reluctant about. I was like, I don't know. It looks like it might be a little cheesy or it might be a little divey. We walked in and what happened?
Well, they were singing. There were 4 or 5 old Irish guys sitting along the bench, and they were singing in harmony. And they were not like a performing group. They were just guys who had a few whiskeys singing their songs, and it was really charming and fun. I thought
it was great, and they were singing. It wasn't prepared in any way.
No,
like. I don't even know how well these guys knew each other. They'd probably been drinking there for years.
Yeah.
But they would end a song and then one guy would start up another song.
Right.
And they would kind of join in because everyone knows all the songs. And then sometimes what cracked me up was sometimes they would start up a song and you could tell the other guys were kind of like, yeah, screw that.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that one.
That's stupid. Why are you singing that? That's a stupid idea.
It would kind of peter out a little bit, and then they'd start up a new one.
Yeah, and what was fun about it wasn't just the guys sitting along the bench. It was also other people in the bar started singing along.
They would join in,
and even we sang along. Where they did like Blueberry Hill and the When I'm 64.
Right. I was going to say that was really the highlight when so we had a beer and then the lady showed up and told us all about the dance recital,
right?
Which we were fully engaged in learning about.
We'll do an entire podcast on that.
And an Irish gentleman, I don't know, he had to be 70, right?
Yeah.
Comes out and starts serenading your wife with When I'm 64.
Right. And wouldn't stop. It, like after the first verse, we were like, okay,
that was
good.
fun. Yeah, that was the best part. It was like after the first verse, we were like, that was adorable. You're an adorable Irish guy.
Doing the whole song.
Yeah, no, we're doing all the verse. We're learning about Vera, Chuck, and Dave.
Right, exactly. Exactly. No, I thought that was the highlight too. That was so charming. I was like, my vision of what Ireland is.
Yeah,
was that moment.
So total locals place.
Lizzie Bell of Off the Beaten Path Food Tours in Boston gives a ton of recommendations of breweries to visit when you're in Beantown. I grew up in the Chicago area, and I have this theory about towns in the U.S. that you can divide them into one of two categories. There are beer towns and there are wine towns. And to my mind, Chicago and Boston are both beer towns. So my question to you, Lizzie and Sam, is Tell me a little bit about the craft beer scene, because, I mean, we know about Sam Adams beer in Boston, but what else can you tell me about the beer scene in Boston?
Oh, so true. I know. Sam Adams is the original craft brew. Sam and I have definitely gone to the factory. There's Harpoon. So I guess, we talked a little bit about craft beer on the tour. The early brewing was centered around the maritime trade as well. So I think, a lot of the ships were the places where people were both importing beer, and the ship captains were actually opening the taverns because they were brewing on the ships, which is kind of funny.
Oh,
and it was kind of funny. So now that's crept into, we're very conservative town, but in like the mid 18th century, I think local brews started to become more popular, and we exempted breweries from taxes, so it became more popular to drink. But anyway, so I would say, let's see, like Remnant Brewery, they're on our Union Square tour. That's a really good tavern. They make their own beer. Other places Sam and I love, there's a place in Somerville called Aeronaut Brewery. And one of our favorite places inside the brewery is this place called Somerville Chocolate, actually. And of course, I have to mention the chocolate place because they've been known to do chocolate bars that use like beer hops.
Oh, cool.
Kind of interesting. What else? There's I would say like Winter Hill Brewing Company, Lamplighter. Lamplighter is kind of cool because they're in Cambridge. They have a lot of these like grilled cheese pop-ups, and they'll come in to the brew room and they'll do some delicious food. Cambridge Brewing Company is an older place at this point. They have an amazing cider festival. If anyone wants to come, they have like bourbon barrel cider and stuff like that we've had in October. I think you go and you can try like 50 different ciders.
Wow.
People wait in line for this event. And actually sometimes we taste the CBC Brewing beer at Grendel's Den. Grendel's Den is like your quintessential pub, kind of like invented happy hour here. And they're in Harvard Square, and they serve a really good CBC amber or IPA. They're one of the first to serve CBC in Boston. And I was just making a list. I was saying to Sam, some other places we like are Far from the Tree Cider in Salem, Idle Hands, Trillium, Night Shift Brewing, Jack's Abbey, which is out in Framingham. It's kind of crazy to me, like how much different types of flavors and kind of like global exposures that these beers are getting. Cause, like for example, I worked in Vermont, in Burlington, and I had the best cider, Citizen Cider. I have all this different beer, and I'd come back to Boston and think, we don't have this. And now like 10 years later,
right.
We're exploding. And I think, it's not that, it's certainly not like a Belgium where you could get some really delicious beer.
Sure.
But like, I think it's, we're pretty notable. And I think that people come here, you can go on like a beer tour, or you can just go to the breweries and tour around. People are very interested in, sharing, what they know. It's really fun. So yeah, in some of our tours, we sample some beer. Like for example, in the Central Square tour, we sample some beer. On the Union Square tour, you can try Remnant. In Harvard Square, you can try some beer at Grendel's. But it's, it's just fun to go to a brewery. It's like an occasion of itself. I think that as Puritan as we are here in Boston, and like honestly, the train closes at midnight. It's not like a late night city, but we do like to kick back some brews. Right? There's actually, I was just reading yesterday, there's a place in South Boston, which is also a trendy area. They have a pickleball brewery. So you go there and you play. I can't even believe this. It's a massive like shipping container. You play pickleball and you have beer. I'm like, what's better than that? That's so much fun. I can't, so there's a lot of cool stuff happening here that like.
I want to invent a new game. Beer pong. I'm going to invent pickleball pong or pickleball beer pong. And you put the cup on the court. If you get the ball in there, then you got to drink the beer. You mentioned you lived in Burlington.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah, wouldn't it be fun? I think it would be fun. Scott Steffens founded the craft brewery Dos Corvos in Lisbon during the worldwide recession when there was very little craft beer in the city. Today, craft beer is booming in Lisbon, and Scott talks about his craft beers, including some unusual ones. Well, this is really nice. The Creature American IPA. Is this your number one beer, or what's your best seller?
So as a category, IPA is definitely our biggest category, but as a single beer, it's actually our Pilsner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big Pilsner fan. What's your Pilsner called?
So it's Prata Pilsner.
Okay.
It's kind of the name is a little bit about the neighborhood that we're in. So this is Braça de Prata,
okay,
which means silver arm in Portuguese. So yeah, it's kind of shorthand for the neighborhood that we're in.
Okay. And so when you're brewing a Pilsner, how is that specifically different from a brewing standpoint from, say, an IPA?
Right. So for a Pilsner, we use 100% Pilsner malt, so no specialty malt whatsoever. And, this is malt that we get from Germany, from a small producer. They don't have any sort of distribution, channels or anything like this. So we just get it directly from the source. We did a little bit of hunting around last year
guy
for that. Yeah. So we have like a yeast that's not off the shelf. This is something that is made for us by a yeast lab. It's kind of in their reserve stock. So I just actually ordered some yesterday. It will take 6 weeks to produce. So yeah, it takes a little bit of planning, but again, it's just like something that we came across one time and just absolutely love. So in a way, a Pilsner is like the most simple beer. It's like the most simple ingredients, but it's we lager it for ideally 6 weeks. In summertime, sometimes not quite as long, but it's just all about the process.
We were just in Ireland a few weeks ago, so I drank a lot of stout when I was there.
Yeah,
Guinness, of course, but also Beamish and Murphy's, and then some micro beers as well. Tell me about your stouts a little bit.
We've made quite a number of them over the years. Currently we don't have any stouts in our permanent lineup, just because we just like making new ones all the time. Fortunately they have a great shelf life. They last a long time. So yeah, we have a lot of big 10, 12% imperial stouts. We always have a couple available. We try to make really big beers. We have a double mash, so we put so much grain in that we have to fill it twice in order to get like one boil kettle volume out of that grain.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's a little bit of a complicated process on the brew house side, but
a little more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, we use a lot of yeast, just to make sure the fermentation is healthy. And yeah, they have pretty high finishing gravity to have that, that thickness that kind of backs it up. And then the alcohol kind of gets lost in there. So they're not, even though they're 10 or 12%, they're not very alcoholic, tasting.
So I didn't realize there was so much grain that went into making the stout. My understanding was one of the main differences is the roasting of the grain.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So if we're just talking about the Irish, 5%, 6%.
Okay.
Stout.
Yeah. That's the difference.
That would be a different, that would be a more simple process. But yes, we would use roasted barley, in a stout, 5, 10%, depending on the recipe. And that's where you're going to get that, dark color and the roastiness in the glass.
Now, when folks refer to a milk stout, what's the difference between a milk stout and a regular, say, imperial stout?
Right. So a milk stout will have lactose in it. So the reason that you would add lactose to a beer is because the lactose is not fermentable by the Saccharomyces, the brewing yeast. So the lactose will remain unfermented, and so that sweetness will, as opposed to the maltose and other sugars that will ferment out, the lactose will remain. So it will be sweet in the glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so you guys, I was back looking in the warehouse, and you guys have lots and lots of different kinds. We've touched on a few of the different kinds that you do, but you have lots of different varieties of beers that you're doing. What are some of the wacky ones that you've done over the last 9 or 10 years that you've been doing this?
let's see. We did a pastel de nata beer where we put
All right.
Yeah, we actually put 100 pastéis de nata in a beer. This is the typical cream custard from Lisbon.
Right.
That was an imperial stout.
And how'd that turn out? What was it like?
Yeah, great. I mean, we've made several batches of it at this point.
What's the flavor profile like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's some vanilla that came through, and we actually added some cinnamon because that's the traditional
the topping
on the pastry, and just the thickness, the creaminess came through. Yeah, it was
cool.
It's a fun beer.
Okay, there you go. If there's any lesson to be learned, it's that wherever you travel, check out the craft beer scene. Even if the city isn't known for beer, like Lisbon, you're bound to find something interesting. Well, that's going to do it for this week. But if you want to hear the full episodes from any of this week's guests or want more info about them, you can find links in the show notes at radiomisfits.com/DED235. Next week on the show, the Azorian green bean Maria Lawton talks with me about Madeira wine and Portuguese festivals and the new season of her TV show, Maria's Portuguese Table. Don't miss that. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com. There's so much foodie travel stuff there. I just posted a video about one of the most popular places in Portugal, Sintra, home of the Pina Palace. Just click on the videos tab at destinationeatdrink.com or go to my YouTube channel at destinationeatdrink946. I also just posted a complete foodie travel guide to Sintra with all the best places to eat, the best dishes to try, and the coolest things to do. Read that at destinationeatdrink.com/Sintra. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter to keep up to date with the podcast, the videos, and all the stories from Destination Eat Drink. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and a guy who's waiting for a Scotch-infused beer, Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.